Hello and welcome to Loops for While and Do While. In this video we're going to look at, in the example predominantly the for loop, but in writing code, but in the syntax part of it we're going to actually look at the syntax for all three loops, because you'll come across these as time goes by. So in this flowchart I have a for loop. It starts with an initial expression, then it checks for a condition, it does everything while the condition is true, and then increases the count of the initial expression, and then continues through until the condition is no longer true, and once it becomes false, it exits. So in syntax we can say it's like this. For the initial expression, usually we put a variable counter in there, then the condition, which is comparing the counter to something, and then the after expression is the increase in the count. And inside the curly brackets we will actually do some sort of statements to do some code. It might be to create a random number, or it might be to do stuff that is repetitive, and that's what loops are used for. They're used for repetitive work. A while loop is a little different. We set the count outside of the loop, then we have while the condition is true, and then increase the count inside, and then once again if the condition is false, it goes and exits the loop. This one can actually end up being a infinite loop if you forget to put the counter after you've done all the statements. And the syntax looks like this. While the condition, execute the statements, increase the count, and then go through the loop again. The next one is the do. The do while is similar to the while loop, except it goes through what the statements first. So you go through the statements first, then you can check the condition, and then you increase the count and go through the loop again. The difference between this and a while loop is that this loop will always go through once before it checks the condition, whereas the while loop, if the condition is not true, it doesn't go in. And the syntax is this. So it's a little bit different. So we're going to go on to our example, which is a random number generator. And here I have it in our HTML page. It's a very basic page. There is no form involved in this one. It's just putting a paragraph tag and then a span with an ID of output here, and then it will we use that to write the numbers. So, and again we have our script being connected, and these are lotto numbers, so it's a random number. If we actually look at our JavaScript, you'll notice that we have a function called show numbers, because that's what we want to do. We want to show the random numbers. We create a variable numbers, and we've just made it empty, so there's nothing inside it. And then we have we want to get 6 numbers, so we know that the endpoint is 6. We create a variable I is just a short variable that's traditionally used for counting in for loops, or in loops. So I, J, K, L, M, they're all used for if you nest loops. So if you've got I equals 0, I less than 6, so we want it to stop because we're starting at 0. So 0, 1, 2, if you go through, you'll find that you'll get 6 before you get to 6. And then they've increased it as I plus plus, but I like to actually put in here I equal plus equals 1. Okay, it's just I like to be able to do that. It makes it a little bit more, I suppose from my perspective, a little bit more secure. Then inside here we're going to do numbers plus equal. So in this numbers plus equal we're going to randomize the numbers, and we're going to use the math random. So when we went through and did the sphere, I talked about the math function, and so here we have the math random that we're going to use. We times it by 100, and it's a decimal of 10 because it's a pass int, and we add it to our space. So this is actually a single quote, a space, then a single quote, because we're just going to write it together. So remember, this is the adding, and this is the joining it to that statement. Once that for loop has gone through, we then can output it. So we're going to have output equals document.getElement by output, and output is the ID of this span here. And then we're going to say if output.textContent, and that's what this is called, text content inside the span. It's another property of that variable, is not equivalent to undefined, then you can put in the numbers, else output inner text dot the numbers. So this has to do with the two document models. It has to do with IE, and it has to do with the other browsers. So one uses text content, the other uses inner text. And down the bottom here, we've just got onload equals show numbers, because we haven't got a form, we haven't got a submit button, so therefore we just need to do it on load. So this is what the winning numbers look like. It's just produce it randomly. If I refresh the page, and it's being a little slow, nope, it's not going to do it that way. If I do it that way, it changes the number. Okay, so if I go and reload the page again, it changes them again. So these are all random numbers that just come up. Well, that's for loops in a nutshell. So it's very succinct. We'll be doing more loops and ifs and whiles and do whiles throughout the course, but that's what they look like to start with. So we can now go on to the next lesson, and in that lesson we'll be looking at complex variables, and it's only the one topic for the lesson, where we've covered two here, but it's pretty intense. So we'll see you then.